Hey guys, so today we have a couple of big updates on the Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf case out of Frisco, Texas. One of them being that Karmelo Anthony is officially being charged as an adult. Now, as most of you are aware by now, this incident involves a situation that played out on April 2nd of 2025 at a high school track meet where Karmelo Anthony brought a knife with him to this sporting event and took a seat under the tent of a high school that he was not a student at. And when another student, who was Austin Metcalf, asked him to leave, the two got into a very brief verbal altercation where Karmelo then reached into the bag looking for the knife that he had brought with him and told Austin Metcalf to touch him and see what happens, where Austin then either touched or grabbed him, reports vary, and then Karmelo pulled out the knife and proceeded to fatally stab Austin Metcalf in the heart. Karmelo then took off while Austin bled to death in his twin brother's arms. And then, per the official police reports describing what was said when the police caught up to Karmelo, he immediately admitted that he did this. He said that he was protecting himself, and then he even asked officers if what he did could be considered self-defense. We're going to talk about what this could mean if he is convicted, but before we get into all of this and another update that I wanted to share with you, I am Outspoken Samantha, and I would love it if you would hit the thumbs up button on this video and subscribe to my channel. I do have a playlist on this case if you are interested in other aspects of what has made this case something of a trending national topic, specifically in regards to race and justice, and how the constant use of racial identities has basically screwed up what people think justice actually means. So let's get right into this. According to this article from the Daily Wire, it says the teen who has been charged in the murder of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf will be tried as an adult in Texas. Last month, Metcalf was stabbed to death at a high school track meet after reportedly telling Karmelo Anthony, 17, that he was sitting in the wrong seat. Anthony has been charged with first-degree murder and, according to an arrest warrant, told the police of the fatal stabbing, "I did it." Anthony will be tried as an adult since Texas is a concurrent jurisdiction state, according to Capital B. The law allows prosecutors to charge minors, typically 16 or 17 years old, as adults with certain crimes. The Collin County District Attorney's Office, which is north of Dallas, is prosecuting the case of Metcalf's apparent murder. Anthony was charged with first-degree murder in April, but a grand jury will review the evidence and decide whether to formally indict on that charge or on a lesser charge like manslaughter, Capital B reported. If Anthony is convicted of first-degree murder, he could face life in prison with a chance at parole after 40 years. He will not face the death penalty. The Supreme Court has said not only can you not seek the death penalty against someone who committed a crime when they're 17, you can't even get them life without parole. That would not be something we could do even if we wanted to, Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis said, according to the New York Post. Now, as far as the legal path that this is on, as I said, he is being prosecuted under the Texas concurrent jurisdiction laws, which are often referred to as direct file laws, allowing prosecutors to charge minors as adults without judicial oversight. Now, I wanted to find out more what this means and what the basis for the application of this law is, and this is what Grok had to say. It says the decision to try Karmelo Anthony as an adult falls under the Texas concurrent jurisdiction laws, specifically outlined in the Texas Family Code Section 54.02 and Texas Penal Code Section 8.07. These laws allow prosecutors to charge minors aged 16 or 17 as adults for certain felony offenses, including first-degree murder, without requiring judicial oversight for the transfer to adult court. This is often referred to as a direct file policy used in 12 states and Washington, D.C. In Anthony's case, the Collin County District Attorney's Office is prosecuting under this framework due to the severity of the first-degree murder charge. As far as potential outcomes if he is convicted, it says if Karmelo Anthony is convicted of first-degree murder, the potential outcomes under Texas law includes a conviction for first-degree murder, a first-degree felony under Texas Penal Code 19.02, carries a sentence of 5 to 99 years or life in prison with a fine of up to $10,000. As a 17-year-old at the time of the offense, Anthony would be eligible for parole after serving 40 years per Texas sentencing guidelines for juveniles tried as adults. Now, I also had Grok lay out the lesser charges that could be pursued in this case, like second-degree murder, manslaughter, and aggravated assault. But they would have to prove that there was no intention to kill, but that this was just a case of reckless conduct, and that even though he used a weapon, that he didn't actually mean to kill Austin with it. Now, I think that those are going to go right out the window when you consider that he brought the knife with him and that he told Austin to make physical contact with him as he was reaching for it and said he'd see what happened if Austin touched him, meaning he planned to use the knife He just needed a reason to do so. And that his immediate target was Austin's heart. If he truly felt threatened, even just showing the knife to Austin probably would have caused him to back off. And if he did feel like he needed to use it to protect himself, a hit to the arm, the leg, or the shoulder probably would have stopped Austin as well. So I just don't think that there is any universe where this kid is going to get a lesser charge than first-degree murder. Some have even argued that there could be premeditation here, as again, he brought the knife with him, and then he told someone to do something where he could feel justified in using it against them. And that makes sense to me, but so far I haven't heard anything about premeditation being officially considered in the legal argument against him. Of course, his team is trying to argue self-defense, but the use of a knife against an unarmed individual may complicate things, as Texas law requires proportionality, meaning you can't stab someone, especially if you know that they don't have a weapon, if they just touch you. The use of deadly force far exceeded the threat that Karmelo Anthony faced, especially when he had every opportunity to leave with no one getting hurt in the process. So that is where the legal case sits right now. But there have been a couple of other things that have sparked more outrage in this case, because come to find out, Karmelo Anthony was still allowed to graduate from high school, which fuels the tension that already surrounds the situation, as it seems like we just constantly want to reward criminal behavior. And we all know, anybody with a speck of common sense understands that what happens when you reward criminal behavior, you encourage more crime. But it wasn't just about the fact that Karmelo was allowed to graduate, it's how this situation came about. From what I understand, since this happened, Karmelo is expelled, and that means he's not allowed in the building or on school grounds. But on April 17th, Austin Metcalf's mom, Megan, sent an email to the school asking them to not allow Karmelo to graduate. This is a post from Sarah Fields, who has covered a lot on this whole situation. I highly recommend following her. She says, on April 17th, Megan Metcalf, the mother of Austin Metcalf, emailed Frisco ISD begging them not to allow Karmelo Anthony to graduate. Her email is heartbreaking to read. Frisco ISD refused to respond. She sent a follow-up email on May 13th, nearly a month later, demanding a response. Megan received the same response that many others, including me, have received when inquiring about a student. Instead of a heartfelt email or any form of empathy from the school where her son was brutally murdered, Frisco ISD included a copy and paste of school policy. So this is the email that Megan Metcalf sent to the Frisco ISD. It says, "Hello, board members. My name is Megan Metcalf. My son, Austin Metcalf, was tragically taken away from me on April 2nd, 2025 from another Frisco student. I have been informed the civil rights team that this person has behind him are reaching out to you requesting he be able to graduate. I do not know much about your stance on protests, but I would urge you to make sure that you do not change your mind on this ruling, that the boy is expelled and it stays that way. My son, Austin, will never be able to graduate. This person will have the opportunity to get his GED at a later time because he's still living. I would strongly request that you do not allow them to sway your ruling and keep him from being able to graduate from the Frisco ISD schools we hold so dear." So then, no response. So this is the follow-up email she sent almost a month later saying, "Someone needs to respond to me. This is unacceptable." This is the response that Frisco sent to Megan Metcalf, this copy and paste response. It says, "Ms. Metcalf, I apologize for the lack of response. Due to student privacy laws, we cannot comment on any individual student. We can provide the following information. When Frisco ISD is notified that a student has been arrested or charged with a serious Title V felony, the district reviews the situation and decides whether disciplinary action is appropriate. If a disciplinary recommendation is made, the student and their parents are notified. If the recommendation is expulsion, the student is not allowed on any Frisco ISD property while the decision is pending. An expulsion conference is then held. The student has the chance to review the evidence and share their side. After the conference, a final decision is made and communicated to the student and their parents. If the student is expelled, they may continue their education through the Juvenile Justice Alternative Education Program. In cases where a student has completed all graduation requirements and is facing expulsion, Frisco ISD typically gives the option of early graduation instead of placement at the JJAEP. By law, once a student meets all graduation requirements, whether at home campus or JJAEP, they are eligible to receive a diploma. However, students who are expelled or who choose early graduation instead of attending JJAEP are not allowed on Frisco ISD property during that time. Respectfully, Mike Waldrop. So then Megan responds to that and she says, "Never would I have imagined a response like this, not even a condolences. If any of you had a heart, the fact that you can't even acknowledge my loss is telling of this board. I look forward to seeing how you handle this situation." The question is, what swayed their decision? Because it's clear that they didn't listen to the heartbreak of the mother of the victim or the community, who is pretty much united on the idea that not being allowed to graduate is a pretty reasonable consequence to murdering a fellow high school student. Well, this was another case of social justice and DEI policies taking precedence over actual justice, which means we reward Black crimes against white people and that outcomes are doled out depending on what your skin color is. Of course, they won't admit that, but that's exactly what it is, as their decision was influenced by a BLM activist organization called American Freedmen Legal Fund. And they sent this letter to the Frisco ISD school board questioning their basis for expelling Karmelo Anthony. It says, "To whom it may concern, I am writing on behalf of the American Freedmen Legal Fund under the Freedom Reparations Fund Trust, which actively monitors due process violations and racially biased disciplinary actions taken against verified and unverified freedmen youth within school systems across the United States. We have reviewed the reported plan by Frisco ISD School District to expel Karmelo Anthony following an alleged incident that remains under legal investigation. Should this expulsion proceed absent a completed criminal process or adjudicated finding of guilt, it could constitute a gross violation of Karmelo's constitutional rights, including denial of due process, presumption of guilt, potential racial discrimination, violation of educational access. We demand that Frisco ISD suspend all actions regarding Karmelo Anthony's expulsion until the legal process is complete and a full disciplinary hearing has been conducted with proper legal representation and transparent evidence review. If these rights are ignored or circumvented, the American Freedmen Legal Fund reserves the right to pursue legal remedies on behalf of the student, including but not limited to federal civil rights complaints, public advocacy campaigns, and litigation. Please confirm receipt of this letter and provide an update on whether the expulsion proceedings are being paused pending further investigation." But to me, when it says civil rights complaints and public advocacy campaigns, that means protests and probably we're going to show up and burn your school down. But that's just me. That's just me. I'm not saying that that's what they're saying. That's just how I'm reading it. You can disagree. So then when the board received that letter, they got scared, not because of the backlash from their community and not because all of the students' parents are saying, hey, this kid should not be allowed to graduate, but scared because it might make them look racist to an activist group who sees racism in everything. So this is the letter that the chief administrator, I believe, of the Board of Trustees sent out. It says, "Dear Frisco ISD Leadership and Board of Trustees, please find attached a formal letter from the American Freedmen Legal Fund regarding the proposed expulsion of student Karmelo Anthony. This communication outlines serious legal concerns related to due process, racial equity, and the presumption of innocence. The Freedmen Legal Fund is monitoring this matter closely and requests written confirmation that disciplinary proceedings will be paused until proper procedures and legal protections are ensured. Should you have any questions or require further information, I'm available by email at" his email. So the American Freedmen Legal Fund sent their bullying letter to Frisco ISD the day after Megan Metcalf sent her letter. And then on May 13th, the same day that Megan Metcalf sent her email following up, saying, "When are you guys going to respond to me?" This post by the same account says, "Victory. Karmelo Anthony will graduate thanks to community support and legal pressure. Karmelo Anthony will now be allowed to graduate from Centennial High School despite facing a pending charge. This outcome follows strong community support, public outcry, and legal pressure, including a formal objection from the American Freedmen Legal Fund sent to Frisco ISD, challenging the attempt to expel him before any conviction. This is a win for fairness, due process, and the belief that every student deserves the right to education until proven guilty in a court of law, not judged by public opinion." Blah, 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 blah. If that wasn't bad enough, this is another post from Sarah Fields, because we love her. It says, "Requirements for early graduation and the ability to receive a diploma. According to this, Karmelo would have needed approval from administration and a judge. The superintendent lied to Jeff Metcalf when he told him in the Monday meeting that it was not up to the school admin to make a decision." I've not been able to find that post, but apparently there's been a little bit more communication going on. But to me, This means that there was a lot of communication going on behind the scenes between Megan's first and second emails. But in my opinion, it seems like they were trying to figure out how to allow this kid to graduate, get the permissions from everyone necessary, and then figure out how to let the public know in a way that says, we didn't have a choice because we could face legal consequences. Whereas they could have spent that time figuring out how to protect their butts in not letting this kid graduate. But instead, they put their energy and resources into fighting for the killer and not the victim. This is what DEI does to the justice system. It eliminates justice. Oh, and this kid's family is still raising money. They're up to $533,000 and have raised their goal to $600K because they push the dollar amount up as people continue to donate. So while this kid is spending at least most of his adult life in prison, his parents at least are going to be living in luxury, which again seems to me like we could end up with other kids who have activist parents who believe that they are above the law because of their skin color, going to school and targeting a white victim so that their family can make some money as well. Because that is what is being pushed and promoted here. And it's exactly what DEI was meant to accomplish: promote the worst behavior and reward it, cause a racial divide, and incite more violence using people who will do it because they were easy to manipulate into believing that they're always victims and therefore their actions, whatever they may be, are always justified. And that is why I think what is going on with the South Afrikaner farmers and the president's meeting between Trump and Ramaphosa really hit home for a lot of people, because we're seeing a lot of those similarities of what's going on there to the narrative that is being pushed here. And I am going to do a video on that this week as well. Those are basically all of the thoughts I have on this particular situation. I'm on the fence about whether or not I think this kid should get life in prison. That's just me. He's 17, but I do understand the severity of the crime that he committed. I do not agree that he should be given the death penalty. And I'm saying that because I've seen a lot of people online saying that he should. I don't agree with that at all, but he does deserve to go to jail. And it is really unfortunate because that decision alone and the false activist narrative that is being pushed on him by his parents at home, where they clearly seem to believe that black on white crime is not punishable or should only be given a slap on the wrist, just cost their son his entire future. So maybe think twice about teaching your kids that they are always victims and that they're going to get away with crimes just because of the color of their skin. But I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this in the comments below. Again, please be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I would love to get to my next goal of 25,000 subscribers sooner rather than later, and I appreciate you being here. Other than that, keep it real, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.